Society tells us that we need to be kinder to ourselves by using daily positive affirmations, taking bubble baths, and eating a donut because you deserve it. I used to think that was self-love, but it's not what I needed, and it never helped me change. All my life, I've been weak. I was weak, I was lazy, I was undisciplined.
I'm kind of shocked that I let myself get to this point. I mean, this is so embarrassing to admit.
Alivia D'Andrea came off as very self-critical in her Glow Up Diaries series. And as a fellow self-criticizer, it made me wonder, does self-criticism actually help us lose weight? And does it help us change our behavior in general? I know I'm extremely late on this, but I wanted to comment on it because when I watched it, it really brought me back to some of my worst days binge eating. And I think this is because I could relate to how harsh she was with herself.
But before we get into it, a big thank you to Built Bar for sponsoring today's video.
Built Bar, as you guys know, it's my favorite protein bar. I may never buy another protein bar again. I don't know. I love having a high protein snack available to me that also tastes great. I'm currently starting to incorporate a lot more protein back into my diet after a long time during quarantine of not really worrying about it as much. So to have something like this that tastes like a chocolate bar but is actually helping you reach your macro goal in some way is always a win to me. So,
and check out these flavors. We have strawberry, orange, coconut, a fan favorite, cherry barcia, mint brownie, German chocolate cake, double chocolate, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, and introducing a new limited time flavor, grasshopper cookie, available only while supplies last. Promo bars sell out quick, so be sure to get them ASAP. If you're interested, click the link in the description box and use my code Kiana10 to try Built Bar today. All right, where were we?
I was weak and had a very low pain tolerance. Food was much more rewarding than a fit body and healthy life because a fit body is hard, junk food is easy. I lived on easy street. That's all I ever knew.
Self-criticism can be defined as negative self-evaluations that manifest through internal attacks and put-downs, otherwise known as beating ourselves up.
I think you seriously wonder as to how someone can let themselves get like this.
I realized that this disgusting state had become my new comfort zone.
Most of us would never be so dismissive to someone else, and yet we think nothing of doing it to ourselves. But why do we do it? Well, self-criticism is often used as a self-correction tool, a way of motivating ourselves toward a desirable state, behavior, or goal, or away from an undesirable one. Like Alivia clearly is, self-criticizers are often ambitious and report thinking that being less critical would make them feel lazy, less responsible, weaker, and ultimately hinder their ability to achieve their goals.
We associate self-criticism with accountability, an honest evaluation of our efforts, self-discipline, and holding ourselves up to our own standards. And we may even think that people or society in general who eschew self-criticism just don't really get it or are too soft. And I know because that is how I felt, and it kind of seems like Alivia might feel the same way.
Like, everyone is models. Like, where are all the average people like me on TikTok?
Why do you keep calling yourself average?
Because I do look average. I'm sorry, I'm a little below average at this moment in time.
I see so much of the same stuff that I used to do in Alivia. Self-criticism was pretty much my go-to technique for my entire life up until very recently. And even then, I'm still finding that fine line. I used to think that in some scenarios, being anything less than critical was the equivalent to being dishonest. And the only thing that ever got me to stop, or at least attempt to stop, was my discovery that it's probably not very effective and potentially even a little bit dangerous when it comes to weight loss and binge eating.
First off, it often leads to the painful emotion of shame.
I mean, it's been going on for so many years, and I've let myself down so many times that, like, I just don't trust myself anymore.
It's so hard to even see myself in this state.
I'm just angry at myself. I think about how I think about myself, and it's not nice. It has never really affected me, but lately it has been.
Shame, a highly unpleasant, self-conscious emotion, arising from the sense of there being something contemptible, ridiculous, or generally wrong with us as a person. It also involves an awareness of how other people view the self, and is linked to a diminished sense of social worth, sometimes leading to a withdrawal from social interactions.
I want to isolate myself from the world. That's not an indicator of how low I feel now. The fact that I don't even want to FaceTime people.
Yeah.
Shame shares many similarities with the emotion of guilt. However, though some researchers argue that guilt is a healthy adaptive emotion, many researchers are arguing that shame offers no such benefits. With the most famous proponent of this theory being best-selling author and researcher Brene Brown.
Shame drives two big tapes, never good enough, and if you can talk it out of that one, who do you think you are? The thing to understand about shame is it's not guilt. Shame is a focus on self, guilt is a focus on behavior. Shame is I am bad, guilt is I did something bad.
So let's pause there for a second. Shame is I am bad, guilt is I've done something bad.
Guilt, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Shame, I'm sorry, I am a mistake.
I realized in that moment this sadness was caused by who I was as a person.
Shame is essentially the feeling that we are unacceptable or inferior to others in some way. And what the research is showing is that when we think our mistakes happen because of something is wrong with us globally, as opposed to something just being wrong with our behavior, we're less likely to take reparative action to fix those problems.
We're less motivated, things feel hopeless, and we're more likely to just give up and pack it in.
I was feeling hopeless about change. Afterwards, I went to Whole Foods to eat my third dinner of the night before going to bed.
Perhaps this is why self-criticizers are significantly more likely to binge eat.
A voice whispered to me, "This isn't gonna last. Just like every other healthy habit you attempted to develop, you're gonna fail again."
According to one study, 95% of ED sufferers reported suffering with a critical inner voice, compared to only 29% of healthy controls.
Here we go again. Thanks for believing in the best of me, but as of right now, I don't even believe in myself.
When observed following a self-critical attack, those high in self-criticism often felt beat down, weak, and unable to counter their own attacks. Self-criticism also has a very well-documented relationship with EDs and binge eating. Fanning et al. Found that self-criticism is not only an independent and robust predictor of EDs, but also the severity of those EDs.
And self-criticism has even been shown to precede binge eating episodes. And actually, in Alivia's series, we see this link documented several times.
I experienced anxiety for the first time in my life at a 6 p.m. yoga class. In the middle of a Warrior One pose, I thought about eating after class. I told that voice in my head, "No, you've already eaten too much today, you're full." I suddenly felt panic rush through my mind and body.
You can see here in Alivia a cycle. She seems to have a craving, feel anxiety about having that craving, begin criticizing herself for the whole thing, and then finally, she binges. Now, a craving is an involuntary automatic act, but unfortunately for people dealing with binge eating, it also often brings a cascade of self-criticism, being angry at yourself for even having the craving, which again is totally involuntary, and the fear and shame at potentially binging once again. You know, I know when it would happen to me, it would be like this thing of like, okay, here we go again. Am I gonna succeed this time? Am I gonna fail? Oh, I'm probably gonna fail. Kiana, you're gonna fail. And then I would binge. This powerful feeling of shame and anxiety grabs our attention, and then we start ruminating. We start thinking about it in a negative, cyclical way. And at the same time, we're kind of anticipating and getting excited about the food reward. So we kind of have this cocktail of like excitement and fear working together to undermine our resolve to not binge eat.
I went to a ballet performance with a friend. We agreed to get dessert after the performance. During the performance, the thoughts about that dessert taunted me. I felt so embarrassed that I couldn't enjoy the performance because I was so fixated on the dessert. After the performance, my friend said she didn't want the dessert anymore. I was silently devastated, and my singular goal was to ditch my friend as soon as possible so I could go buy dessert. I had tunnel vision and I started to choose food over friendships.
Then on top of this, when you actually eat the food, it soothes the motivational state, aka it acts as the solution to the problem, linking them together and making it that much harder again to resist the next time, i.e. creating a habit. And on top of that, these intense negative emotions, as well as the tunnel vision, the being focused on this situation, they deplete cognitive resources needed to act rationally. Again, a third factor depleting our ability to control ourselves in this scenario.
Several theories of binge eating posit that the act of binging may provide an escape, a way of tuning out and self-soothing when faced with negative emotions, or even a way to temporarily disassociate from awareness of the pressure of one's perceived flaws. Self-criticism and shame simultaneously undermine control of eating behavior and stimulate pathological eating behaviors like extreme restriction at the same time.
In other words, they can create a shame binge cycle. And even if you're not a binge eater, another study demonstrated that among participants in a weight loss program, those who ranked the highest for self-criticism and shame lost the least amount of weight.
Yet another study found that among individuals without ED tendencies, participants who were induced to experience shame had higher levels of caloric consumption than those who were not.
And even if you're not struggling with food or your weight at all, self-criticism and shame significantly predicts lower overall goal progress.
Quote, study after study shows that self-criticism is consistently associated with less motivation and worse self-control.
I hope that this video has convinced at least somebody that self-criticism is not the answer. I personally literally used to think that I probably wasn't being self-critical enough of my own actions. But now looking back, I know that it was one of the biggest factors, if not the biggest factor, that really kept me stuck right where I was for as long as I was. Because I was so cruel to myself, because I was constantly being critical of my own actions, I wasn't able to think rationally about, hey, maybe I have a problem here that I'm not going about dealing with the right way. It never occurred to me that maybe I should be a little bit nicer to myself to get a different result. And all of that could have been avoided had I just been a little bit more compassionate toward myself, rather than condemning myself for something that I was trying earnestly to change but didn't have the skills to do so yet. I don't think that all self-criticism is a bad thing, but I do think that a large chunk, if not most people, are not good at using it in a positive way. We all know people who don't self-criticize at all and also don't hold themselves accountable for anything. And clearly this is an undesirable trait. But I just think there's a very, very fine line between being honest and objective about one's own actions and beating yourself up to the point of it not even being a helpful tool. And I think that a lot of people are just not good at walking that line, myself included. Now, I don't want to get too much into it because we were just covering self-criticism in this moment, but I wanted to give you guys something to Google if you are interested to what people are saying is like the antidote or the better way than self-criticism. And that is self-compassion. When I first discovered this concept, I thought it was a little too like woo-woo for me. I thought it didn't really resonate with me or my values. However, I want to point out that it's a lot different than self-kindness. It's not glossing over your mistakes. It's not, telling yourself you did good when you actually did awfully. It is an open, honest, and non-judgmental appraisal of self. It's about making a mistake and then committing to learning from it, but in a non-judgmental way. And if you have my guide, you know that this is actually a big part of it. And this has been a really instrumental tool for me in my process of learning how to control my own behavior. Instead of being just totally savage when I mess up, I can stop and just try and evaluate it and learn from my mistake as opposed to just being like, you idiot. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope we provided a case to stop self-criticizing so much if you are a current self-criticizer like myself. If anything, the only thing that got me to stop doing it was just the realization that, hey, whether or not I think I deserve it, it's not effective. So why would I keep using that strategy? Also, I don't know why I'm commenting on this video in June when it was posted in like January. I'm working on it, okay? It's funny because I originally commented something positive on one of her videos because I was happy for her. It's you know, it's cute, but then I got a chance to watch the ones before it and I was like, whoa, this is honestly kind of a weird experience for me because it feels so similar to that time that it's like you almost forget how it feels to be in that scenario. But yeah, I really wanted to comment on it because I think there's a lot of people who can benefit from learning that, hey, self-criticism is not that great for us. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it and I will see you in the next one. I don't know what that's about.